It may have temporarily cost the Seattle Kraken first place in the race for the best odds at the first overall pick, but dang it if it isn't fun to win. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where, in the wise words of Chris Drieger, it's fun to win. And that's just what the Kraken do in this one, 4-1 over the Dallas Stars. And since there weren't any changes to the lineup other than a little bit of line shuffling and Chris Drieger back in net instead of Grubauer, we'll just get right into it. It's a pretty uneventful first couple of minutes of the game, with the Stars on the second half of a back-to-back, having just played in San Jose the night before, and the Kraken coming off of those 2 losses in a row to the Vegas Golden Knights, and a lot of frustration boiling over there in that second game. Still though, it's the Stars who end up getting the first power play of the game pretty early on, as Lind heads to the box coming off of his first NHL goal in that second loss to Vegas. But in spite of clearly and correctly having fewer players on the ice, the Kraken seem misinformed as to which team is actually on the power play, as both Oleksiak and Gord get very good looks off on the Dallas net, though neither one of them can quite get the shot off. However, the Kraken are able to regroup back at their end of the ice and push once again shorthanded down the ice as McCann gets a pass up to Wennberg. As he crosses the blue line with the puck shorthanded into the offensive zone, he draws the attention of both defenders, which does cut off his momentum. However, it also leaves McCann wide open, who is caught up on the play, off to the side, who Wennberg finds on the pass, and McCann gets a wide open shot and scores to give the Kraken the shorthanded goal and an early 1-0 lead. For McCann, he extends his team high and single season career high with his 25th goal in the season, but it is his first shorthanded goal of the season for the Kraken, now having 16 even strength, 8 on the power play, and 1 shorthanded. Meanwhile, picking up assists on the goal are obviously Alex Wennberg, as well as Carson Soucy, who, it has to be said, gets a bit of an easy assist here, having passed it up to McCann deep in the Kraken end of the ice way at the beginning of this, before McCann passed it to Wennberg, and then the rest of the play goes from there. Following the McCann shorthanded goal, the Kraken would get another shorthanded chance, this time off the stick of Vince Dunn, though this one would be saved, and the Kraken would eventually kill off this power play successfully, and even more so with that 1-0 lead. And then in the following minutes, they would continue to press for more, getting a lot of really good offensive zone time and moving the puck around very effectively, just not really getting any shots off on net. Meanwhile, Dallas was able to get some shots off on net on the other end of the ice throughout the rest of the first period, but unlike the Kraken, weren't able to create any kind of high danger scoring chances, having most of their shots come from the outside, with nothing as far as traffic in front of Drieger, making it pretty easy for him to make every save he needed to. And so eventually we do get to the end of the first period with the score still 1-0 Kraken, and it's a first period where, although the stats, advanced or otherwise, might not tell you as much, it did seem pretty well controlled by Seattle all the way through. Again, the shots are pretty even between the two teams, though neither team really got all that many shots off on goal, which does make it kind of feel like that 1-0 lead that the Kraken have could be pretty important as this game goes on. Either way, it seemed like the Kraken had the handle on the flow of play overall throughout this period, with Dallas pretty clearly tired and playing sloppy in that second half of a back-to-back. The second period does get off to a pretty slow start, though eventually about 7 minutes in, the Kraken are able to build some momentum and once again get in the offensive zone, effectively move the puck around, and this time actually get some shots off on goal, one of which is a very good chance that Adam Lind creates, passing the puck up to Yanni Gord, who's in front of the net. He gets the shot off, but Ottinger is able to get just enough of it to have it deflect off the crossbar behind him and out of harm's way, though it is worth mentioning, while it doesn't get on the score sheet here, or at all by the end of the night, we hadn't seen the last of that Lind to Gord connection, 73-37, as they connected a couple of more times throughout this game to nearly get that puck in the back of the net and create high danger scoring chances, with Lind being moved up to that Gord line after scoring his first goal. And also, it seems like with McCann having a little bit more managed ice time, with probably a sore hand after his fight. Following that press from the Kraken, back at the other end of the ice, halfway through the second period and halfway through the game, Drieger finally faces his first real dangerous chance that comes from the Stars, as a rush chance from the Stars into the Kraken end of the ice leads to a couple shots on goal and a rebound chance for Heiskanen wide open next to the net, who gets the shot off, but Drieger is able to come up with the big toe save to keep the Kraken in that 1-0 lead. But while Drieger is able to keep the puck out of the net, on the play Larson also takes a pretty questionable interference call, Either way, he heads to the box and Dallas heads to their second power play of the game. For the Stars though, they may have been better served to stay at 5-on-5 because for the second time in a row, it's the Kraken who get the better of the Dallas power play as both Sheahan and Alexiak get good shorthanded chances to start this Dallas power play. And while the Stars do survive that, once again the Kraken get another rush chance, and this time it's Vince Dunn with the shorthanded shot. Once again saved, though Gord ends up getting tripped up by Ottinger just after the save, which does draw a rise from the crowd. But you know what? Even as a Kraken fan, I do have to admit that while there wasn't a call on this one, and yes, Gord does take a pretty spectacular tumble, tripping over Ottinger and sliding all the way into the boards in the corner, I don't know that this was necessarily a terribly bad missed call by the refs, or even necessarily a missed call at all. That having been said, this whole power play came from a pretty soft call on Larson, and then even if the loud booing from the home crowd over this no call on Gord's trip over Ottinger is a little bit unwarranted, which I think there's an argument for, the refs haven't heard even anywhere near the end of it from the crowd just yet. As following the rest of this power play being killed off, and then a very good look open chance for Lind getting saved by Ottinger, there's a very blatantly missed slash on Gord where there's a ref staring right at it, but he decides to also not make a call, to which the crowd once again is all too happy to let the refs hear it. This time, there's no argument that the, as Forsland likes to call them, unpaid officials are absolutely right that a call should have been made on Borgen getting slashed here. Regardless though, even with, again, one of the refs staring right at it, they turn a blind eye to it, and we do a few minutes later get to the end of the second period with the score still 1-0. And once again, as the refs leave the ice, the crowd lets them hear it. The third period does get off to a much more back and forth start, with, as of kind of late in the second period, the Stars finally starting to find some energy in this game that they really hadn't shown that much of through the first half of it. However, they are starting to create at least opportunities to score around the Kraken net. They just aren't quite able to find that one last stick on a rebound to get it past Drieger, though they almost are able to, as once again it's Heiskanen who has a very good scoring opportunity off a rebound that once again Drieger is able to get a glove to this time and keep it out of the back of the net and maintain that Kraken 1-0 lead. Not only was Drieger able to save the lead for the Kraken here though, but right off the ensuing faceoff in the Kraken defensive zone, it's Carson Soucy who gets the puck, and this is where we see another one of the themes that would turn into of this third period start to emerge for the first time. And that's the fact that, well, the Stars were able to start creating more offense in this third period, probably out of a bit of desperation as they are very much on the edge of that playoff bubble in this race in the West. They do get a little bit too desperate and open up that back end as a result of this pressing offense. And it's that sloppy defensive and back end play by the Stars that Soucy and the Kraken are able to take advantage of here, as Soucy saucers a beautiful pass up through the neutral zone up to Donato, who's wide open and gets on a completely free breakaway, and as he approaches the net, dekes the pads off of Ottinger and wraps it around him into the goal to give the Kraken the 2-0 lead. Once again, just like that, some Soucy sauce followed by Donato dangle, and the Kraken get a much needed insurance goal and have a little bit more breathing room on the scoreboard. Not only that, but with his 14th goal in the season here for the Kraken, Donato not only ties his career season high for goals, but also ties his career season high for points with his 25th point on the season, also for the Kraken, now with a chance to, with plenty of time left, set a career high in both points and goals this season for Seattle. Meanwhile, for Soucy, who already has a career high in goals for the Kraken this season with 9, with his 2 assists on the night, he does set a career high in points as well, with now 10 assists on the season for a total of 19 points on the year. Unfortunately, that extra breathing room that Soucy and Donato are able to create on the scoreboard for the Kraken does become pretty important as this game goes on, when a few minutes later, after Donato does get another breakaway chance that this time is defended well by the Stars before he can get a clean shot off, so the save is made pretty easily by Ottinger, the Stars will get their third power play of the game. However, the Stars seem to have learned from their 2 mistakes earlier in this game where the Kraken were getting much more out of the Stars' power play than the Stars were, so instead the Stars decide to just take another penalty themselves to send this to 4-on-4, mitigating the risk of the Kraken getting another shorthanded goal. Now, in case it wasn't obvious, I'm kidding, the Stars weren't intentionally taking a penalty to go to 4-on-4, But either way, it turns out to work pretty well for them, as at 4-on-4, eventually they do end up scoring on it just before it turns into the Kraken power play at the end of it. The Dallas goal to make it 2-1 comes from the high slot, and I'm not sure if Drieger just never sees it. Either way, Drieger had been putting on an absolute show here, especially in the third period. Yes, again, as we mentioned early on, the Stars really hadn't tested him until halfway through the second period. But since then, he has really had to work hard and made a number of highlight reel saves. Sadly though, obviously his shutout does get broken up here by the Klingberg goal. And for Klingberg, he beats Drieger in really the only way Drieger was gonna get beaten all game long. And that is an absolutely perfect shot, bar down and in, just glancing off the top of the bar and bouncing off of the goal line and into the back of the net. The good news though is that while yes, it does really suck that Drieger's shutout gets broken up here in the third, with this being one that it really felt like he deserved to have that 0 put up on the scoreboard. The one goal is the closest Dallas would get to the Kraken in this one, as they weren't going to stop giving up breakaways to Seattle. The next one coming for Daniel Sprong, who gets on a completely free breakaway and tries to go 5-hole on Ottinger, but Ottinger is able to close that up and keep Sprong off of the scoreboard, with him still having scored in every away game since joining the Kraken, but 0 for 3 now at home. Which I guess the good news there is that the Kraken are now going on a road trip, so maybe he can start scoring goals again. Either way, he's definitely had some chances at home, and it's only a matter of time till he starts putting up goals while wearing a blue jersey. In this game specifically, though, it doesn't end up mattering that he isn't able to score on this breakaway. Not only because, as we know, the Stars only score 1 goal in the game and the Kraken already had a lead at this point, but because the Kraken get another breakaway, and this time it's Yanni Gourde who gets on the breakaway, thanks to Kuhlman bouncing it off of the boards from the Kraken end up into the neutral zone, where Rask chips it out to Gourde on a breakaway, splitting the defense, and he fires off a wrist shot and scores to give the Kraken back a 2-goal lead. It's now 3-1. And at this point, yeah, that seems like it's going to be the game, as the Stars, who did seem to be kind of building momentum as this third period went along, have now completely fallen apart on the back end and are just giving up chance after chance for the Kraken. Still though, Dallas gives it the old college try and goes empty net for the last couple of minutes, and eventually it's Carson Kuhlman, who I think was trying to bounce the puck off of the boards up to himself for someone to catch up to it and then put it into the empty net. Either way, he ends up perfectly bouncing it off of the boards to have it slowly slide perfectly into the net and give the Kraken that empty net goal and the 4-1 eventual victory. For the Kraken, of course, the 4-1 win at home does mean that Fish are going to get yeeted into the stands after the game. And with this being a pretty dominant win for the Kraken, it's 3 stars that they get in this one. It's Jared McCann getting the 3rd star, opening up the scoring with that shorthanded goal, his first shorthanded one of the season again. Ryan Donato gets the 2nd star with what turns out to be the game-winning goal on his breakaway attempt, with that beautiful dangle around Ottinger to put it into the back of the net. And then the 1st star, very deservedly so, is Chris Drieger, with him saving 29 of the 30 shots he faced in this one for a save percentage of .967, and 3 now games in a row for him that have been absolutely outstanding performances. And again, like I said earlier in the video, while he didn't get tested all that much or even all that often through the first half of this game, in the second half of this game, he definitely had to come up with some pretty big saves to keep the Stars off of the scoreboard, save for that one goal that Klingberg is able to score with that absolutely perfect shot off the bar. But even outside of Drieger, this was honestly a very complete gameplay by the Kraken at both ends of the ice. Defensively, they again did a good job of limiting the chances that the Stars got, and especially limiting the quality of those opportunities. There were a few here and there that again Drieger had to come up with big saves on, but for the most part, the Kraken were keeping the Stars to the outside and also keeping defensemen around the net to pick up rebounds that came off of Drieger. Meanwhile, offensively, whether or not it was due maybe in some part to a fatigued Dallas team on the second half of a back-to-back, they were controlling the pace of play, transitioning through the neutral zone and holding the puck in the offensive zone for a large portion of this game. And while in the offensive zone, again, really effectively moving the puck around and even getting some shots off, especially in the latter part of the game. And of course, in the third period, also being all too happy to take advantage of a soft back end of the Stars and turn that into breakaways going the other way, and a couple of times turn those into goals. And probably the most impressive part of Seattle's game here against Dallas was the play of their penalty kill unit, who not only got all of those shorthanded chances, but also while they were in the defensive zone was very aggressive and keeping Dallas from getting any chances off on the Kraken net with that man advantage. It's a more aggressive penalty kill approach that the Kraken have started to take here over the last few games that has developed this almost 180 flip of the penalty kill that was giving up goal after goal back in March and February, but now over these last couple of weeks has entirely flipped that and has not let anything up and has again started to create some chances going the other way. So at the end of the night, really the only slight bummer, or I guess small downside for the Kraken in this win over the Stars, is the fact that while at one point in the night for the second time this season, they did for a brief moment hold that best odds at the first overall pick with the 32nd spot in the NHL, with Arizona coming back to win in overtime against Chicago, with the Kraken completing the win over the Stars, which also improves Vegas's odds of making the playoffs, unfortunately, as well. They do re-jump back over the Coyotes and also over the Habs, both of whom are tied now at 49 points, while the Kraken now sit at 50. But again, it's still a tight race, and even if the Kraken don't get the best odds at the first overall pick, they'll be among the teams with the best odds, and they could still end up getting it with that lottery system. So we'll happily take all of the Kraken wins that we can get before the end of the month. With that being said though, as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section, what you thought of this game, and feel free to party it up after another Kraken win, especially a win at home. And until next time, if you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below that help support the channel. So if you haven't already, I'd appreciate you using them. And as always, stay safe out there, be good to each other, and go Kraken.